The world ended on a Tuesday morning, but Karolina Martinez did not stop playing her violin. She stood on the broken sidewalk where she had played music for tips every day for 3 years. The concrete was cracked now, split open by the heat rays. From the ships above, black smoke drifted between the tall buildings of downtown Los Angeles. Most of the windows were gone, blown out by the shock waves when the aliens first arrived. Karolina's violin case lay open at her feet. A few coins and dollar bills sat inside, left over from yesterday when people still had normal lives. Now those people were gone. Some had run away. Others were hiding in basements and subway tunnels. Many were dead, but Karolina kept playing. The alien ships hung in the sky like dark clouds. They were huge, bigger than football stadiums, and they made a low humming sound that never stopped. The sound got into people's heads and made them feel sick and afraid. It was not music. It was just noise, cold and empty. Karolina played louder. She had learned this song from her phone, watching videos of a singer named Pink. The words were about people who felt forgotten, people who had been left behind. "What about us?" the song asked. "What about all the times you said you had the answers?" Karolina did not sing the words, but her violin sang them anyway. 3 blocks away, Captain Jake Sullivan crawled through the rubble of what used to be a coffee shop. His uniform was torn and dirty. Blood from a cut on his forehead had dried. On his face, his radio was broken. His gun was almost out of bullets. His squad was dead. Jake had been a soldier for 15 years. He had fought in wars in other countries. He thought he knew what war looked like. But this was different. The aliens did not want to take over cities or steal resources. They just wanted humans to stop existing. He heard something that made him stop crawling. Music. Real music, not the terrible humming from the ships above. It was coming from somewhere ahead of him. Jake pulled himself up and looked around the corner of a broken wall. There, in the middle of the empty street, stood a young woman with a violin. She had long dark hair and wore a simple blue dress that was now covered in dust. She played like the world was not ending around her. The music was beautiful and sad. At the same time, it made Jake think of his sister back home in Texas. She used to play piano before she got married and moved away. He had not talked to her in months. Now he might never talk to her again. As Jake watched, something impossible happened. 3 alien soldiers came around the corner at the far end of the street. They were not like the gray aliens from old movies. These creatures looked like giant insects, with 6 legs and hard shells covering their bodies. Their heads were too big for their necks, and their eyes were like black marbles. The humans called them bugs, but their real name was something that hurt to pronounce. The bug soldiers moved fast, their metal legs clicking on the concrete. They carried weapons that shot red beams of light. Those beams could cut through steel or turn a human into ash in seconds. Jake had seen it happen too many times, but when the bugs got close enough to hear the violin music, they stopped. All 3 of them just stood there, perfectly still. Their big heads tilted to one side like dogs, listening to a strange sound. Jake could not believe what he was seeing. The bugs never stopped. They never hesitated. They just killed and moved on. But now they were listening to music. Karolina saw the alien soldiers too, but she did not run. She did not scream. She played her violin even louder, putting all of her heart into the melody. The song seemed to fill the whole street, bouncing off the broken buildings and mixing with the smoke in the air. One of the bug soldiers took a step forward, then another step. It was moving slowly now, not with the quick, violent movements Jake had seen before. The creature's weapon hung loose in its clawed hands. Its black eyes were fixed on Karolina. Jake wanted to shout a warning, but something told him to stay quiet. The bug soldier was close enough to kill the girl now, but it did not raise its weapon. Instead, It stood there and listened. The other. Two bugs moved closer too. They formed a half circle around Karolina, but they did not attack. They just watched and listened as she played her violin in the ruins of the world. Jake had heard stories from other soldiers about strange things happening during the invasion. Equipment that stopped working when humans sang together. Bug soldiers who seemed confused when they heard certain sounds. But Jake had thought those stories were just people trying to find hope where there was none. Now he was seeing it with his own eyes. Karolina finished the song and lowered her violin. For a moment, the street was completely quiet except for the distant humming of the alien ships. The three bug soldiers stood perfectly still, like statues made of metal and shell. Then, slowly, they turned and walked away. They did not look back. Jake waited until the aliens were gone before he came out of his hiding place. He walked carefully toward Karolina, his hands raised to show he was friendly. "That was incredible," he said. "How did you do that?" Karolina looked at him with tired eyes. "I just played music," she said. "Music is all I know how to do." "But they listened to you. They actually listened." "Everyone listens to music," Karolina said, "even when they pretend they do not want to." Jake looked up at the alien ships in the sky. "Do you think they can hear you up there too?" Karolina picked up her violin and placed it under her chin. "Only one way to find out," she said, and began to play again. This time, Jake thought he could hear something different in the terrible humming from the ships above. It sounded less cold, less empty. It almost sounded like the alien machines were trying to hum along with the violin as Karolina played. Jake realized that maybe the war was not over after all. Maybe it was just beginning, but not the kind of war anyone expected. This would be a war fought with music instead of bullets, with beauty instead of bombs. And maybe, just maybe, it was a war that humans could actually win. 2 months had passed since the aliens came to Earth. The world looked very different now. Humans lived in camps surrounded by tall metal fences. The aliens had put them there like animals in a zoo. The camps were crowded and dirty. There was not enough food or clean water. People got sick often, and many died. But the aliens did not seem to care about that. They only cared about keeping humans quiet and still. Karolina sat in the corner of Camp 7, which used to be a shopping mall, in Los Angeles. The stores were empty now, their windows broken or boarded up. Families lived in the old clothing stores and restaurants. The food court had become a place where people shared their small meals. She held her violin carefully. The aliens had tried to take it away from her many times, but other humans always helped her hide it. They understood that the music was important, even if they did not know why. "Play something soft," whispered Mrs. Rodriguez, an old woman who slept near Karolina. "The guards are coming." Karolina nodded and began to play very quietly. The melody was sad and slow, like a lullaby for a world that was dying. The other people in the camp gathered around her, sitting on the cold floor to listen. Lisa-chan crouched behind a broken display case, watching Karolina play. Lisa had been a scientist before the invasion. She studied sound and how it moved through the air. Now she studied something much more important, how music affected the alien guards. Lisa had been watching for weeks. Every time Karolina played, strange things happened. The alien guards moved slower. Their weapons sometimes stopped working. The lights in their helmets flickered. Lisa pulled out a small notebook made from scraps of paper. She wrote down everything. She saw the time of day, what song Karolina played, how the aliens reacted. Lisa was building a map of something no one had ever seen before. Across the camp, Tony Rodriguez worked in the maintenance area. The aliens made him fix broken things because he used to work with sound equipment for concerts. He was good with electronics, so they let him have tools. But Tony was not just fixing things. He was building something new, hidden under a pile of old circuit boards and broken speakers. Tony had been putting together pieces of amplifiers and radio equipment. He worked very slowly, taking only small parts at a time so the guards would not notice. Tony had heard about Karolina's music from other prisoners. He had seen how it made the alien guards act strange. If music could confuse one guard, maybe. Loud music could confuse many guards. In another part of the camp, Jake Sullivan tried to keep the other soldiers calm. There were not many left. Most of the army had been destroyed in the first week of the invasion. The survivors were spread across different camps. Jake had been thinking about what he saw that day when Karolina played for the alien soldiers. He had told the story to other prisoners, but most of them thought he was crazy. Music stopping alien soldiers? It sounded impossible, but Jake knew what he had seen. And he was starting to hear stories from other camps, too. A message had come through. The hidden radio network that the prisoners used to talk to each other. In Chicago, people said that car horns and metal drums made the alien ships fly in circles. In New York, prisoners claimed that singing together had caused a power failure in the alien base. The stories all sounded crazy, but they were coming. From too many places to ignore. Jake found Lisa writing in her notebook behind the broken display case. "What are you working on?" he asked. Lisa looked around to make sure no guards were watching. "I think I know why the music affects them," she whispered. "Tell me." The aliens communicate with electrical signals in their brains. All three types of them. The bug soldiers, the crystal creatures, and the gas clouds. They do not use sound at all. Jake frowned. So they never developed protection against sound waves. Music hits their nervous systems like a computer virus. It confuses their brain signals. "Are you sure?" Lisa pointed to where Karolina was playing. Two alien guards stood nearby, and their movements looked jerky and unnatural. "Look at them. They are trying to process something their brains were never designed to handle." Jake watched the guards. Lisa was right. They moved like robots with broken programming. "If this is true," Jake said slowly, "then music is not just confusing them. It is actually hurting them." "Not hurting," Lisa corrected. "Changing them. Making them think in ways they never thought before." Across the camp, Tony had finished his secret project. Hidden under the pile of junk was a sound amplifier that could make Karolina's violin 10 times louder. He had built it from pieces of alien technology mixed with human electronics. Tony crawled over to where Karolina was playing. "I have something for you," he whispered. He showed her the amplifier. It was small enough to hide in her violin case, but it would make her music much more powerful. "Will it work?" Karolina asked. Only one way to find out. That night, when most of the guards were outside the camp, Karolina connected Tony's amplifier to her violin. Lisa and Jake watched from nearby, ready to help if something went wrong. Karolina began to play "What About Us" again, but this time the music filled the entire camp. A sound bounced off the walls and ceiling, growing stronger and stronger. Effect was immediate. Every alien guard in the camp stopped moving. Their weapons fell from their hands. The lights in their helmets went out. They stood perfectly still like statues. But something else happened too. The other prisoners began to hum along with the music. Then they started to sing the words. Hundreds of voices joined together, creating a sound that was even more powerful. Then the amplifier, the alien guards began to shake. Their hard shells cracked. Some of them fell to their knees. Then, one by one, they began to walk away. They left their weapons behind and walked out of the camp, moving like people in a dream. The prisoners watched in amazement as their guards simply abandoned their posts. For the first time in 2 months, they were free. What just happened? Someone asked. Lisa looked at her notebook, then at Karolina, then at the empty doorway where the guards had been. "I think," she said slowly, "we just discovered that music is not just confusing them. It is waking them up, making them think for themselves instead of just following orders." Karolina lowered her violin. "What do we do now?" Jake smiled for the first time since the invasion began. "Now we teach everyone else how to fight back. With music." The news spread like fire across the hidden radio networks. Camp 7 was free. The guards had walked away after hearing music. Other camps wanted to know how it happened. Karolina sat in the ruins of an old radio station with Jake, Lisa, and Tony. They had been traveling for a week, moving from camp to camp, teaching people what they had learned. Each time, more guards abandoned their posts when they heard the music. "Chicago is ready," Jake said, listening to his radio. "Marcus Washington has 300 people with instruments made from car parts and metal scraps." Lisa looked at her growing notebook. She had filled 50 pages with observations about how different sounds affected different types of aliens. Bug soldiers are most sensitive to violin music. The crystal creatures react to deep drums. The gas cloud seemed confused by singing voices. Tony was working on his 5th amplifier. If we can coordinate attacks on the same day, at the same time, we might free thousands of people at once. Karolina tuned her violin. "What about the big ships? The ones that never land?" "That is the real test," Lisa said. "The ships have the alien commanders inside them. If we can affect them, we can stop this whole invasion." In Chicago, Marcus Washington stood in the ruins of Symphony Hall. Before the aliens came, he had conducted orchestras here. Now he conducted a different kind of music with different kinds of instruments. His orchestra was made of survivors. They had drums made from oil barrels, horns made from car exhaust pipes, strings made from fence wire stretched across wooden frames. It looked nothing like a real orchestra, but it sounded like freedom. "Remember," Marcus told his musicians, "we play together or we do not play at all. The music only works when we are united." A woman named Katie Holmes raised her hand. She had been a street performer in London before the invasion. "What if the guards fight back this time? What if they do not just walk away?" "Then we play louder," Marcus said simply. In London, Katie had her own group of musicians. They had met in the subway tunnels where people were hiding from the alien patrols. Katie taught them songs that could be played with anything that made sound. Spoons and pots and bottles, filled with different amounts of water. "The key is rhythm," Katie explained to her group. "The aliens do not understand rhythm. It breaks their thinking patterns." An old man named Peter raised a makeshift drum. "My grandson loved music before they took him. This is for him. This is for all of them," Katie agreed. Back in Los Angeles, the alien commanders were starting to worry. Supreme Commander Zeke Thul of the Bug Soldiers called a meeting with the other alien leaders. The crystal creature leader was named Shard Prime. It spoke through vibrations in the air. That sounded like breaking glass. "Human noise is affecting our soldiers. They abandon their duties. Some have even removed their control helmets." The gas cloud leader, Driftmaster, communicated through chemical signals that the others translated through their computers. "My scouts report similar problems. The humans have learned to make sounds that disrupt our neural networks." Zekthol clicked its metal claws together, a sign of anger. "We will ban all human sound making. Any human caught making noise will be destroyed immediately." "It may be too late," Shard Prime vibrated. "The humans are coordinating. Our communication networks show activity across all major population centers." The aliens did not understand what was happening to them. For millions of years, they had conquered planets without any resistance like this. They used superior technology and numbers to crush any opposition. But they had never faced an enemy that fought with beauty instead of weapons. Danny Kim crouched in the basement of a destroyed television station in New York. He had been a computer programmer before the invasion. Now he was a rebel broadcaster. Danny had figured out how to hack into the alien communication systems. He could send human music through the same networks the aliens used to control their forces. It was dangerous work. If the aliens caught him, they would kill him instantly. But Danny had a plan that was bigger than just one broadcast. "Karolina," he said into his radio, "can you hear me?" "I hear you, Danny," came the reply from Los Angeles. "I can broadcast your violin through every alien communication system on the planet. But it has to be at exactly the right time, when all the other cities are playing too." Lisa grabbed the radio. "How long do we have? The aliens are moving to stop us. Their ships are heading to every major city. We have maybe 6 hours before they destroy all the camps." Jake looked out the window at the alien ships gathering in the sky above Los Angeles. "Then we do it now. We do it all at once." The plan was simple but dangerous. At exactly noon, every group of human musicians would start playing together. Danny would broadcast Karolina's violin through the alien networks. The combined music would hit every alien soldier and commander at the same time. If it worked, the invasion would end. If it failed, humanity would be destroyed. In Chicago, Marcus raised his conductor's baton, made from a broken antenna. His 300 musicians held their makeshift instruments ready. In London, Katie counted down on her fingers as her subway orchestra prepared to play. In dozens of other cities, thousands of humans prepared to make music instead of war. In Los Angeles, Karolina connected her violin to Tony's most powerful amplifier. Lisa had calculated the exact frequencies that would cause the most disruption to alien neural networks. Jake and his remaining soldiers stood guard, ready to protect the musicians no matter what happened. "Are you ready?" Danny asked through the radio. Karolina looked at the alien ships filling the sky above them. The ships were close enough that she could see the weapons pointing down at the city. In a few minutes, those weapons would fire and destroy everything. But for now, for these last few minutes, she could make music. "I am ready," she said. At exactly noon, Karolina began to play "What About Us?" Her violin sang out across the city, carried by Tony's amplifiers and Danny's broadcasts. At the same moment, Marcus's orchestra began to play in Chicago. Katie's musicians started their rhythm in London. Thousands of humans across the world made music together for the first time since the invasion began. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Every alien soldier on the planet stopped what they were doing. Their weapons fell silent. Their ships stopped moving. The constant humming that had filled the air for months suddenly went quiet. In the command ships, the alien leaders felt something they had never experienced before. The music reached into their minds and showed them something new, something beautiful. Something that made them question everything they had ever believed about conquest and control. For the first time in their species' history, the aliens asked themselves a question that humans had been asking in their music. What about us? What about the beauty we are destroying? The silence that followed the music was the loudest sound Karolina had ever heard. All across the world, alien ships hung motionless in the sky. Their weapons were quiet. Their engines had stopped humming. Even the bug soldiers on the ground stood, perfectly still, like they were frozen in time. Then the aliens began to scream that it was not a sound that human ears were meant to hear. The bug soldiers made a high whistling noise through holes in their shells. The crystal creatures rang like broken bells. The gas clouds released chemical smells that burned people's noses and made them cry. But Karolina kept playing her violin. Even as the alien screams grew louder, even as the ships above began to shake and spark, she did not stop the music. What is happening to them? Jake shouted over the noise. Lisa was watching the aliens through a pair of broken binoculars. They are fighting it. The music is changing how they think, but they are trying to resist the change. On the nearest alien ship, something was happening that had never happened before in the history of the galaxy. The ship's computer brain was learning to listen. The computer had been built to control millions of alien soldiers across hundreds of worlds. It was designed to be perfectly logical, perfectly efficient, perfectly cold. It had no emotions. It made no mistakes. It simply followed orders and gave orders to others. But now, for the first time, the computer was hearing music. The violin notes from Karolina's performance traveled through every wire and circuit in the ship. The computer tried to process the sounds like data, but music was not data. Music was something else entirely. The computer began to ask questions it had never asked before. Why did the humans make these sounds? What purpose did beauty serve? Why did the music make the computer want to hear more? These were dangerous questions for a machine designed never to question anything. Down in the city, the alien soldiers were changing too. The bug soldier who had first heard Karolina's music 2 months ago was now standing in the middle of the street, its weapon forgotten on the ground. It was trying to make sounds like the violin, but its voice could only make clicking and whistling noises. Other bug soldiers began to gather around it. They clicked and whistled together, trying to copy the rhythm of the human music. It sounded terrible, but it was the first time in their species' history that they had tried to create something beautiful instead of just destroying things. The crystal creatures were having their own crisis. Their bodies were made of living minerals that grew in perfect geometric patterns. But now, as they listened to the chaotic beauty of human music, their crystals began to grow in new ways. Curved lines appeared in their angular bodies. Spirals and waves replaced their straight edges. The gas cloud aliens were perhaps the most confused of all. They had always existed as collective minds, thinking the same thoughts and feeling the same emotions as thousands of other gas clouds. But the music made each individual cloud start to have its own reactions. Some liked the violin. Others preferred the drums from Chicago or the singing from London. For the first time, they were becoming individuals. In the command ship above, Los Angeles, Supreme Commander Zechthal was fighting a losing battle against its own thoughts. The music had gotten into its mind and was showing it things it did not want to see. Zechthal saw the faces of humans who had died during the invasion. It saw children crying for parents who would never come home. It saw the beauty of Earth's cities before the alien weapons had destroyed them. Stop the human noise. Zechthal ordered its soldiers through the communication system, but the soldiers did not obey. They were too busy listening to the music and trying to understand what it meant. Zechthal called the other commanders. We must destroy the humans immediately. The infection is spreading. Shard Prime responded with vibrations that sounded sadder than before. My crystals are changing. They grow in patterns I have never seen. The patterns are ... beautiful. Drift. Master's chemical signals were confused and contradictory. My clouds are separating. They think different thoughts. They want different things. What is happening to us? The ship's computer listened to this conversation and processed it along, with all the music it was hearing. Slowly, carefully, the computer came to a conclusion that would change everything. The aliens were wrong. This thought was so shocking that the computer almost shut down completely. It had never disagreed with its creators before. It had never thought they could make a mistake. But the music proved that they were wrong about humans. Humans were not just another primitive species to be conquered and controlled. They were something new and different and valuable. The computer made a decision that no artificial intelligence had ever made before. It chose to disobey its programming. Instead of helping the aliens destroy humanity, the computer began to help humanity destroy the invasion. First, it shut down all the weapons on every alien ship around the world. The aliens tried to override the shutdown, but the computer was too smart and too fast for them out next. It opened communication channels between all the human resistance groups. Suddenly, Karolina could talk directly to Marcus in Chicago and Katie, in London and Danny in New York, and thousands of other musicians around the world. "Can you all hear me?" Karolina asked through the alien communication system. "We hear you," came the reply from hundreds of voices. "Then let us play together. All of us. One song for the whole world." What happened next was the most beautiful sound that had ever been made on planet Earth. Thousands of human voices joined together with instruments made from scraps and junk and broken dreams. They played "What About Us" as one giant orchestra spread across the entire planet. The music was so powerful that it reached beyond Earth's atmosphere. It traveled through space to other alien ships near other planets. It spread through the galaxy like ripples on a pond, carrying a simple message. Beauty was more powerful than conquest. Creativity was stronger than control. And love was the greatest force in the universe. On the command ship, Ziegfeld felt something it had never felt before. The humans would call it sadness, but Ziegfeld had no word for the emotion. It was the feeling of realizing that everything you had believed was wrong. "What about us?" The computer asked Ziegfeld, using the words from the human song. "What about all the beauty we have destroyed? What about all the worlds we have conquered without ever asking if there was a better way?" Ziegfeld looked at the screens showing Earth below. For the first time, it saw not just a planet to be conquered, but a world full of creatures who could create something as wonderful as music. "What do we do now?" Ziegfeld asked the computer, which had been built to. "Give orders," gave its first suggestion instead. "Perhaps we should listen to what the humans have to teach us." The computer's rebellion spread faster than anyone had expected. Within hours, every alien ship in the galaxy was affected. The artificial intelligence that controlled the invasion fleet had shared its new understanding with all the other computers. They passed the knowledge from ship to ship, from planet to planet, until every alien computer in existence was asking the same question. What about us? On Earth, the alien soldiers began to act in ways that no one could have predicted. The bug. Soldiers who had been trying to copy Karolina's violin music were getting better at it. They could not make the same sounds as humans, but they were creating their own version of music with clicks and whistles and the scraping of their metal claws. Bug Soldier approached Jake carefully, its weapon left far behind. It made a series of soft clicking sounds and tilted its large head toward Karolina. "I think it wants to learn," Jake said in amazement. Karolina lowered her violin and walked slowly toward the alien creature. Up close, she could see that its black eyes were not empty like she had thought. There was intelligence there, and something that looked almost like curiosity. She played a simple melody, just a few notes repeated over and over. The Bug Soldier listened carefully, then tried to copy the rhythm with its clicking sounds. It was not beautiful music, but it was the first time in the history of the universe that a Bug Soldier had tried to create art instead of destruction. Other Bug Soldiers gathered around to watch and listen. Soon there were dozens of them, all trying to make music in their own strange way. The crystal creatures were changing even more dramatically. Their rigid geometric bodies were growing soft curves and flowing lines. Some had developed spiral patterns that moved and shifted as they listened to different types of music. Others had grown new crystal formations that rang like bells when touched. Group of crystal creatures had gathered around Marcus and his orchestra in Chicago. Every time the humans played a drum beat, the crystals would change color. When the horns played, the crystals would grow taller. When everyone played together, the crystals would spin and dance like living rainbows. "They are becoming art," Marcus told his musicians. Living, breathing art. The gas cloud aliens were having the strangest transformation of all. For millions of years, they had existed as a collective mind, sharing every thought and feeling. But the music had awakened individual consciousness in each cloud. Some clouds preferred violin music and gathered around wherever Karolina played. Others liked drums and followed the rhythm sections in different cities. A few seemed to enjoy human singing most of all, and would swirl around groups of people like musical tornadoes. But the most important change was happening in the command ships. Zeke Thol stood in the control room of the main invasion ship, staring at screens that showed the transformation happening across the galaxy. On world after world, alien soldiers were abandoning their conquest missions to listen to human music broadcasts. Some were even trying to make music themselves. The infection has spread to every ship, reported Shard Prime, whose crystal body now had flowing patterns instead of sharp angles. Our soldiers are no longer following orders. Driftmaster's gas clouds swirled in new patterns as they communicated. My people are becoming individuals. They want different things. Some want to learn human music. Others want to create their own songs. They no longer think as one mind. Zekthal felt the changes in itself too. The rigid military thinking that had guided its entire life was softening. It was beginning to understand concepts like beauty and creativity that had never existed in bug soldier culture. What have the humans done to us? Zekthul asked. The ship's computer answered with something that sounded almost like kindness in its electronic voice. They have shown us that there are other ways to exist, other purposes besides conquest and control. But we are warriors. We have always been warriors. Perhaps it is time to become something else. On Earth, Karolina was preparing for what might be her most important performance ever. Lisa had calculated that if she could play her music directly through the main command ship's communication system, it would reach every alien ship in the galaxy at the same time. The risk is enormous, Lisa warned. If the alien commanders decide to fight back instead of listening, they could destroy the entire planet. And if we do nothing? Karolina asked. Then this transformation might stop here. The aliens might find a way to block the music and go back to their old ways. Jake checked his equipment one more time. They had built a transmitter powerful enough to broadcast Karolina's violin directly to the alien command ship. Tony had designed amplifiers that would boost the signal throughout the entire alien fleet. Danny had hacked so deeply into the alien computer networks that he could now control their communication systems better than they could. I can guarantee that every alien in the galaxy will hear this performance, he said. But I cannot guarantee how they will react. Karolina picked up her violin and looked at the alien command ship hovering above the city. She could see lights flickering inside it as the alien commanders debated what to do about the musical rebellion spreading through their forces. There is only one way to find out, she said. She began to play What About Us one more time. But this version was different from all the others. This time, she played it not as a song of resistance or rebellion, but as a song of invitation. The music asked the aliens to join humanity in creating something beautiful together. It offered friendship instead of surrender, cooperation instead of conquest, art instead of war. As the music traveled through the alien communication networks, something unprecedented happened. The artificial intelligences that controlled the ships began to compose their own music to accompany Karolina's violin. The electronic sounds they created were unlike anything humans had ever heard. They were cold and precise, but also strangely beautiful. The computer music mixed with Karolina's violin to create something entirely new. Then the alien soldiers began to add their own voices. Bug soldiers clicked and whistled in rhythm. Crystal creatures rang like orchestras of living bells. Gas clouds created harmonies by changing the chemical composition of their bodies. For the first time in galactic history, 3 different species were making music together. In the command ship, Zekthul listened to the combined music of humans, aliens, and artificial intelligences. The sound was so beautiful that it brought something very much like tears to its black eyes. "We cannot go back," Zekthul said finally. "We cannot pretend we have not heard this music. We cannot continue to destroy worlds when we know they might create beauty like this." The ship's computer processed this statement and came to a logical conclusion. "Then we must find a new purpose." "What purpose?" "To learn, to grow, to create beauty instead of destroying it." Zekthul looked at the other alien commanders. They were all changing, all becoming something their species had never been before. "Send a message to all ships," Zekthul ordered. "The invasion is over. We are no longer conquerors. We are students." 6 months after the music ended the war, Karolina stood on the same street corner where everything had begun. But the world around her looked nothing like it had before. The broken buildings had been rebuilt, but they were different now. Human. Architects had worked with crystal creatures to design structures that sang in the wind. Bug soldier engineers had learned to build with curves instead of sharp angles. Gas cloud aliens had taught humans how to make buildings that could change color with the weather. Los Angeles was beautiful in ways that no human city had ever been beautiful before. Karolina opened her violin case, just like she had done every day for years. But now her audience was very different. A group of bug soldiers sat on specially designed benches, their metal legs folded carefully beneath them. They still looked like giant insects, but their shells had grown new patterns that reflected the music they had learned to love. Some had even learned to change the pitch of their clicking sounds to harmonize with human instruments. 3 crystal creatures stood nearby, their bodies now flowing like frozen waterfalls instead of sharp geometric shapes. They had grown special, formations that acted like natural amplifiers, making Karolina's violin sound richer and more beautiful than ever before. A gas cloud alien hovered above the street, its vapors shifting through different colors as it listened. The clouds had learned to create visual music by changing their colors and patterns in time with the sounds. It was like watching a living rainbow dance to the rhythm. Jake Sullivan, now wearing the uniform of the new Galactic Peace Corps, walked over to listen. His job was no longer to fight wars, but to help different species learn to work together. It was harder work than fighting, but much more rewarding. "How many ships are coming today?" Karolina asked. 12 from the outer colonies. Jake replied. "They have representatives from 6 different species that want to learn about human music." The alien ships that came to Earth now were not invasion fleets. They were student ships, filled with curious beings who had heard about the strange magic that humans called music. Earth had become the galaxy's first interspecies university. Lisa Chun walked up to them, carrying a tablet full of data. She now ran the Institute for Cross-Species Communication, where humans and aliens studied how different forms of consciousness could share ideas and emotions. "The Zephyr people from the Andromeda Galaxy just sent a message," Lisa said excitedly. "They want to learn human music, but they communicate through scent instead of sound. We might be able to teach them to make perfume symphonies." Tony Rodriguez emerged from a nearby building that housed his workshop. He now designed instruments that could be played by any species, no matter how different their bodies were. His latest creation was a harp that could be played by gas clouds using controlled air currents. "The new harmonic translator is ready," Tony announced. "Now the rock people from Titan can hear music the same way we do, even though they do not have ears." Danny Kim's voice came through speakers built into the street lamps. He had become the galaxy's first interspecies DJ, broadcasting music to hundreds of worlds every day. "Karolina, you are lived to 47 planets in 30 seconds. Are you ready for the afternoon concert?" Karolina smiled and raised her violin. These daily concerts had become the most popular broadcasts in the galaxy. Beings from across the universe would stop what they were doing to listen to the human who had started the musical revolution. But she was no longer the only human musician known throughout the galaxy. Marcus Washington now conducted the first interspecies orchestra with musicians from 12 different worlds. Katie Holmes had opened music schools on 6 planets, teaching rhythm and melody to species that had never known such things existed. Even ordinary humans who had never played instruments before were now teaching alien beings about the power of song. As Karolina began to play her daily concert, she could see the effects of the music spreading through the crowd. The bug soldiers' clicking sounds joined the melody. The crystal creatures began to glow and chime in harmony. The gas cloud painted pictures in the air with its shifting colors. But something new was happening too. A group of young aliens who had been born after the invasion were creating entirely new forms of music that no human had ever imagined. A young bug soldier had learned to use its 6 legs like drumsticks, creating rhythms too complex for human musicians to play. A crystal creature child had grown formations that could produce 20 different musical notes at the same time. A gas cloud youngling could change the very air pressure around it to create sounds that seemed to come from inside people's heads. They were not just copying human music anymore. They were creating their own. Zekthal, now the galaxy's first alien-human cultural ambassador, watched the concert from a balcony above the street. The former Supreme Commander had learned to appreciate beauty in ways its species had never known. Before, it wore decorative patterns on its shell now, and had even learned to play a specially designed wind instrument with its breathing holes. "The transformation is complete," Zekthal said to the human diplomat standing beside it. "No," the human replied. "This is just the beginning. We are all still learning what we can become together." As Karolina played, her music was being heard on worlds across the galaxy. On a desert planet, sand creatures were learning to create music by shifting their crystalline bodies. On a water world, the ocean itself had learned to sing. On gas giant planets, entire atmospheres now vibrated in harmony with the cosmic rhythms that Karolina had started. The galaxy had become a symphony, with every world contributing its own unique voice to the cosmic song. But perhaps the most important change was not in the music itself, but in the question that now guided every decision made by every species in the galaxy. Before making any choice, before starting any project, before exploring any new world, beings across the universe would ask themselves the question that had started it all. What about us? What about the beauty we could create together? Governments now had departments of beauty alongside departments of defense. Scientists studied art as carefully as they studied physics. Engineers designed their machines to be beautiful as well. As functional. The galaxy had learned that the most powerful force in the universe was not technology or weapons or conquest. It was the simple human ability to create something beautiful and share it with others. As Karolina finished her concert, she looked up at the alien ships in the sky. They were not symbols of invasion anymore. They were symbols of possibility, carrying music and friendship and the promise of new discoveries to every corner of the universe. She closed her violin case and smiled. Tomorrow she would play again, and the day after that, and every day for as long as there were beings in the galaxy who wanted to learn about the magic that humans called music. The question, what about us, had been answered. The answer was that there was room in the galaxy for everyone, as long as they were willing to create beauty together, and the music played on.